Approve partial payment estimate for JB Holland for $292,970.24. You want to talk? Go ahead.
Sure. This would be the pay estimate that covers about half of the work on the Highway 30 widening project, and covers mostly the pavement and grading operations. Doesn't get it obviously to fully complete, but it does cover a substantial amount of the work. And basically just procedural. They requested payment for it, we approve it in the amount of the request and recommend payment.
Any more questions for him? Entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Travis to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Lance. Travis?
Aye.
Lance?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Okay. Partial payment estimated for the same company for $58,736.47.
And this was submitted at a later date as pay estimate 3, and covers almost the remainder of the work. There are still a few other items out there. They have some silt fence removal and a few things like that they have to take care of when the weather improves. And this one, I had sent out a memo on it to explain that there was a little bit of an overage, and again, that's due to that change order we had discussed a while back, where we had to change the pavement section due to an unexpected variation from what we had in the as-built plans from the DOT. We worked through that with them, as we discussed previously, to come up with a solution, negotiated the price down on the asphalt with the contractor to try to minimize the overage. Obviously, there were some variations in the thickness that created additional asphalt quantity, and the memo explains that
My question is,
situation.
why wasn't that noticed before we went out for bids? You know what I have noticed over and over, we have these change orders, and these bids come in higher and higher. Is that the norm, that whatever somebody bids, they know they get a change order to get more money?
Change orders are pretty common on projects anymore. You usually see 2 to 3 change orders. Usually what you see is 5 to 10% of the project, which is why a lot of times you'll see a contingency built in. Particularly when you're dealing with loans or grants, they always want to see that money set aside as a contingency for that reason. If you look at articles that are easily obtained on the internet regarding contracting, and you look up change order, it'll say pretty much every project has change orders. Now, obviously a building project, as you saw from the City Hall, has a lot more change orders than a project like the water main project that we did. As you have a higher level of certainty with what you're doing, the change orders will decrease. This one, as I mentioned, we were going off the information that was provided to us on the DOT. We have to design it according to the information we have, which is what they gave us on as-builts. And when we get out there and there's a change in site conditions, that's what the change order is intended to cover, so that everybody's treated fairly in that
So
situation.
does every contractor put 5 to 10% in their bid?
No, it's not in the bid, it's in the budget that the city has. Normally what you'll see is that if you have a project, you always budget for a contingency. So when you see our estimates put together, you'll see that we'll itemize everything out, and then we'll have a 10% contingency typically on those projects. And that's how we usually address those. One of the things that has come up on other communities that we work in is they don't like to do change orders either, so we set up a budget item after we do the bid, and that's a certain amount, let's say 5 or 10%, whatever everybody agrees on, and that's the contingency fund. So if we have these things come up, we look to the contingency fund. If it's in there, it just comes out. It's not a long process with change orders and everybody is concerned about budget. It's already been factored in with the project. And certainly that's one way to approach it. The other is just to deal with it on an item-by-item basis as they come up.
So when we applied for this grant, did we have change orders in the grant?
This was not funded by a grant. This was funded.
Okay, how was it funded?
This was funded by, Chris, is it local option sales tax in the bond?
Okay, so did
This
we,
was the bond.
Right.
so did we, that's, the change orders are in there, the bond?
In with the bond. The bond was based on the estimate from what we had for what the project was going to cost. That's what.
But we don't have the change orders, we don't budget the change orders in the bond.
I don't remember any contingency being in there. Did you-
On the original estimates that we put in there were contingencies. We also had a couple of different options that we looked at as far as how far we went. So I think this one was over I think we were right at or just a little over the
This-
estimate with
when it
the
came in, it was
bid.
right at the estimate,
Right.
without this change order. And on a lot of projects, we had a lot more unknowns with this when you're working with a state highway like this, because you have to rely on them for the information they're gonna give you as far as what's there, and a great deal of it was wrong. Is that what I understand as far as the thickness?
The pavement section.
Asphalt versus concrete.
Right. The pavement section was not correct, and we have to work with them on how we can construct a new section. So if that changes, we have to adjust to that accordingly, which is why we had a long period in there when they weren't doing anything. We were discussing both with the contractor and with the DOT what was an acceptable method to construct this now that we had a difference. And I could go through with a diagram and explain why the change was necessary. If it benefits anybody, I'd be happy to do that, whether it's through a work session or anywhere else. But certainly if there's more concern about this and you want a better explanation, we can provide that. I guess that's what I was attempting to do with the memo, but there's a lot more detail that goes into it, a lot more of our time that as far as working this out to try to get it so that everybody approves it. It's an acceptable method to address the situation, and as I mentioned, we worked with the contractors quite a bit to reduce the unit prices on the bid items so that there wasn't as high of an overage, because there was more quantity, so we shouldn't have to stay with the plan amount. We should get some sort of volume discount is what we discussed with them, and they were okay with that.
Well, it's just my feeling. I don't know if anybody else in the whole community feels that way. But when you add $16,690.13 to a bid, that's a lot of money.
It is.
You know, I mean, when you don't even have a budgeted for anything, I mean, where are we going to get the $16,000? You know, if we're in budget now, we're not going to let so-and-so have any money because we don't have it and everything.
No,
We didn't even put
it's
it
in the bond. There's enough in the bond to cover the project.
Okay, so there's enough in the bond, but it's not just this one, Chris. It's every single one that we've done. There's always a change order that's adding more money to the projects. And that's just my opinion. That's council's decision on how they're going to pay for it, which I realize we have to pay the bill, but that's my opinion. There's
Well, it's
too
the
many
nature of
change orders.
construction. I mean, that's just the nature of construction.
Well,
I mean, we had to go off of what the DOT was wrong. I mean, there is nothing we can do about that. You know, we can chastise them all we want, but there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, if we don't have the data we need to do the project right, then we can't do it. You know, otherwise we just won't do any projects ever, because you're going to have a change order on everything. Something always comes up.
So tell me why all of a sudden we go from 1 flagger to 8 flaggers because of the construction. I mean, you know, there's 13,400 for nothing but flaggers. I'm sorry. We need a motion to accept this or whatever.
Well, there is a way you can do it. You can have them bid it without those contingencies, but you have fewer bidders, and I think they'll bid so much higher. This is a cheaper way to go. We accept part of the risk along with the contractor. I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
John. Motion by John, second by Travis. Any further discussion? All those in favor, or John?
Aye.
Travis?
Aye.
Lance?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.